Let's kick off the first quarter of No Huddle Necessary. I'm joined directly to my, right by the babyface assassin himself, Brock Vieira, the man who has successfully dispatched at least 4 coaches to whatever is next in their lives, and who knows who's next. And then directly beneath him, you will find our trademark infringement-free captain, Captain Steve Rogers. How are you doing, sir? And directly beneath me, you will find the ever pleasant, the always smiling Steve Atkinson. Look at him. Oh, that's a face that every mother in America just wants to hug to her bosoms. And so now, gentlemen, we are now far enough into the NFL season to get a good sense of the cream rising to the crop and the floaties, as they say, sinking to the bottom. So now, as we take a look, I want you to tell me, and I'll start with smiling Steve Atkinson, who the top 4 teams in the NFL are right now, and why those are the top 4 teams in your opinion.
So the top 4 teams, I'm going to start with the 6-0 Philadelphia Eagles. They are the best team in the league. They just beat the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. The Buffalo Bills are second. I think the AFC goes through Buffalo this year. They just beat Kansas City. Josh Allen had a hell of a performance in the fourth quarter of that Chiefs game on Sunday. I think the Bills, it's the Eagles, Bills, and then Kansas City is 3. Even though they lost on Sunday, Mahomes is still dangerous, especially when it matters the most. And the 4th team, I'm going to surprise you and say I'm going to go with Steve Rogers' Vikings. They are 5-1, first place in the NFC North. With Green Bay is a mess. The Bears are dysfunctional, and the Lions are the Lions. The Vikings are the team to beat in that division. Okay.
Well, I see we have an unbreakable bond between the Steves. They've formed an alliance. So we'll see where this takes us. Well, what the heck? Let's keep that Steve sandwich slapped together. The same question to you, our captain.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Nice Wednesday to you, tipping off the NBA season. But yes, the NFL cream of the crop. I'm going to work the opposite direction and go from 4 down. I've got actually the 6-0 undefeated Philadelphia Eagles here in my 4th position. I know, shocker. But I'll run through it really quickly. Their record is completely hollow if you want to talk about how hollow the Vikings are. So their first week win, they squeaked by the Lions, the lowly Lions, by the whole 3 points. Then they beat up on the Vikings, who are supposedly so hollow and wallow. Their next victory is against the Commanders, who I believe are not rising in the cream. They're part of the floaters sinking. So again, that's another nobody victory. Who do they play next? The Cardinals. Again, a team I feel like is more on the falling on the floating side. So the only victory they have that has any merit is the Cowboys last week. But they were facing a backup quarterback. So again, that's another excuse that everyone is giving the Vikings, is that they're facing backup quarterbacks, etc., etc. So I am applying that same rhetoric to the Eagles. Sorry, they're number 4. Number 3, I've got the Buffalo Bills because, yes, they are the Buffalo Bills. Yes, they just beat their arch nemesis in their own stadium, which is hard enough to do. But they are continuing to face injury issues, and I think that's going to keep compounding and eventually going to draw them into the murkier territory than they want to be. And then also that takes me to my number 2 team is the Kansas City Chiefs, who, yes, they did just lose to them, but they're on the healthier side of the thing. So I'm going to say the Chiefs haven't even put it all together yet. We have yet to see what they're really potentially able to look like when they've got it all clicking. Yes, Travis Kelce had 4 touchdowns at other games, so I guess we've seen glimmers of what their potential is, but let's see that consistently play out. And then, of course, obviously, that puts me at my number 1 team in the NFL this year, my own hometown squad, 5-1 Vikings, reigning their division by a 2-game lead. and has the tiebreaker of beating everyone in the division already once at home with an undefeated home record and a current 4-0 win streak going into their bye week. Also is one of the healthiest teams in the league, which is why I see them set up. Oh, also the rest of their season is pretty much a cake if you look at it. They have 8 potential wins in their next 11 games. Again, facing the likes of the Commanders, the Jets, the Patriots. I mean, there's really no reason why this Viking squad can't just steamroll right into the playoffs. So they've got 3 teams that's going to give them a challenge: the Giants, the Cowboys, and the Bills. They're definitely going to lose to, so it's okay because it's in Buffalo and it's an AFC team. But those are my top 4 teams.
Okay. Well, I didn't realize how flexible you were, Steve, until I saw you tie yourself into a pretzel to explain how somehow the Eagles are not as good as the Vikings. That was fascinating to watch. Okay, that brings us now to Brock Vieira, the babyface assassin. Go.
Yeah, so definitely, basically, I think we're all kind of in agreement. The Eagles, the Bills, and the Chiefs are the top 3 teams in the NFL right now for justifiable reasons. There's really nothing I can add to that conversation. My 4th team is the New York Giants. They have been the absolute surprise of this season. And I remember columnist and now ESPN analyst named Kimberly A. Martin saying that the Giants, when they were 4-1, should tank in order to somehow get better next season. I did disagree with that completely. I thought the Giants were in a win now mode, and it's clear they're here, they're for real, and they can win in a multitude of ways. Not only offensively do they look completely revamped in the Brian Dable, which we expected, but defensively, man, they are a dangerous juggernaut to face. Wink Martindale has a defense playing at a completely high level, and when you look at the Giants' simple wins, it really comes down to how good can their defense hold up. This defense is built to win late in the season. This defense is built to win in the playoffs, and they have the running game that with Saquon Barkley is good enough to support to put up enough points to win it come January, February. So that's why I have the Giants City at 5-1 as my number 4 team in these rankings.
Okay. I'm going to stick with you and roll into our next question. So, who are the top 4 players in the NFL right now, regardless of position?
Got you. So I got to start with the quarterbacks, like always, and that's Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen. They're on an absolute tear right now. I expect the numbers to come down to earth slightly a little bit as the season goes on. The weather starts to change, but they're actually lighting up scoreboards. When it's clutch time, they come through, and I'm not going to let one interception from Pat Mahomes change how I look at him. He's clearly the best quarterback in the league, no matter what Josh Allen does at this point. Josh Allen needs to do a lot more than he's already doing in order to eclipse him, in my opinion. And that's not a discredit to Josh Allen. That's just the standard that Pat Mahomes has set. So right now, I have Pat Mahomes number 1 and Josh Allen number 2. Josh Allen, I mean, what can you say about him that hasn't already been said? He distributes the ball very well. He makes plays in the clutch, and when everything breaks down, he gets those much needed yards on the ground. The only criticism, if I can even say that about him, is that he takes a little bit too much punishment. That might hurt him later on the season, but that's really not a criticism at all. He's phenomenal. Number 3 is Micah Parsons for the Dallas Cowboys. When you talk about versatile and dominant, he's both those things. You put him on the edge, he's going to get your quarterback. You don't put him in coverage, he makes plays, as we saw against the Eagles. No matter where you line him up against the field, he's just an all-around dude. He's an all-around dog, and that's why he's my number 3. And number 4 is Derwin James, safety for the Chargers. He's another guy that's very versatile. You can put him all over the field. When you see against the Broncos, he was able to disrupt passes. He's able to get sacks on the quarterback. He just does a lot. You can line up at safety, outside linebacker, edge rusher, slot corner. Doesn't really matter. Just another dude that if Michael Parsons and Derwin James weren't able to play for those defenses will allow much more points. So those are my top 4 players in the league right now.
Okay. I'll bring this now to, of course, our man from the undisclosed location down in beautiful, I don't know, somewhere in Massachusetts, I'm guessing. That brings us now to Steve Atkinson. Who are the 4 best players, regardless of position, in the NFL?
All right, so I agree with Brock, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes, 1 and 2. The third one, though, I'm going to say Matt Judon, who is the MVP of this Patriots defense right now. He is all over the place making plays. He had a strip sack again in the Detroit game that led to a Kyle Duggar pickup for a scoop and score for 6 points. And, he is just all over the place. He had even a good season last year as well. He did fall off a little bit towards the end of the year, but so far I think he's the top player on the Patriots defense. And my fourth one, I'm going to go running backs and say Ramondre Stevenson. I really think he's a stud for this Patriots defense. He's the number one running back right now with Damian Harris out. He showed some life last year in the preseason and also in the regular season. He is explosive and also put up great numbers in the Detroit game and had some good runs last week too. And I think he's going to keep going.
So just so I can check the math on this. So it's the quarterback of the Bills and Chiefs and then 2 Patriots?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure. And then that brings us to God love him. And that brings us to our captain, our trademark infringement-free Captain America, Steve Rogers.
All right, yeah, my other 2 friends here have already covered number 1 and number 2. It's Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and for every single obvious reason on the book and on the planet, if your eyes work. Moving on, I've got at number 3 Jalen Hurts, who is just putting on a fantastic second or third year with a new coach, new system, and just proving any and all doubters really to shame at this point. And it doesn't look like there's any reason for that to stop. So I'm going to say Jalen Hurts is balling out, and it's he's proving his potential, and I think there's no other reason for him not to be in the top 4 conversation. And then obviously my other number 4 is Lamar Jackson, who is averaging a monstrous 8.1 yards per rush attempt and over 6 yards after contact. It's even better than Josh Allen, I believe. So. Yes, he is slightly struggling in fourth quarters. I think they'll get that figured out. I'm not quite sure that the Deshaun Jackson thing is really going to be the solution to that, but maybe if it brings some of the pressure off of the defense trying to stop his run, maybe it does. I don't know. But yeah, those are my top 4.
Okay. And you dug yourself a little bit out of that hole you dug yourself in before by ranking the Eagles below the Vikings. So this helps. You've brought back to even again. And I'll stick with you, Captain, my captain. Who are the top 4 coaches right now in the National?
All right, well, I was going to be spicy this week, so I'm not afraid. Andy Reid is one of my top coaches, and it's quite obvious his winning percentage. He's one of the greatest offensive-minded coaches there is, and they just are continuing in Kansas City to stay on top of the AFC West out there or close to it, and are really in the conversation just about every year to be in the Super Bowl. So I think he deserves a lot of credit. My second coach, for being specific to this year, I am going to go with Brian Daboll, who is doing incredible things in New York, bringing that Giants team further in his first year than I thought they would in his second year. And then number 3, I'm going to go with the Nick Sirianni of the undefeated Eagles. So, yes, I am still giving credit where credit is due, but I just had to shoot holes at everyone shooting holes at my team all the time. We're not Swiss cheese over here, and if we are, so are the Eagles. Anyway, and my 4th coach is also Kevin O'Connell, who is in conversation to be coach of the year with our team being 5-1 and turning the entire team around after what we've been through the last few years. So there's my top 4 coaches.
Okay. I'm going to break up the Steve sandwich. I'm going to go to the babyface assassin himself, Brock Vieira. Who are your top 4 coaches right now?
Well, first, Steve, I just wanted to say that you had Lamar Jackson in your top 4. Don't tell Charlie that, because he has some very interesting thoughts on Lamar Jackson. But so top 4 coaches, gotta agree. Andy Reid. I mean, he's performing at such a high level so far. And when you lose a guy like Tyreek Hill and you're able to maintain the offense production, that's just a testament to your skills as a coach. Brian Daboll turned the Giants around. They're firing on all sides of the ball. Very consistent. They make plays when they need to, and they come up clutch at the end of games more times than not. So he's my number 2. Pete Carroll is my number 3. I think we all expected Seattle when you looked at how they drafted and how they went about their offseason, they really didn't get any pieces to compete right away. It was really setting up for 2023 when they go out and get a quarterback in this great quarterback carousel we have in college football right now. And right now, they're in the thick of things in terms of vying for the playoffs. That's just a testament to his ability to bring in some really good assistant coaches, some really good coordinators, and have a very explosive offense all of a sudden, and then also having key pieces in place that have helped out now and will be solid for the future. Guys like Abraham Lucas, guys like Charles Cross, guys like Kenneth Walker. So he's my number 3. And then Arthur Smith, I talked about him a lot last week during Fired or Wired. The fact that his name ever comes up in anybody's conversation to be fired is complete blasphemy. The man has the Falcons playing at an elite level right now, as shown with their 28-14 victory over the 49ers. They're really 4 or 5 plays away from being top of the division right now, even potentially top of the conference. And that's a roster that's been depleted for a second. Expect the Falcons to come on strong in the second half of the season and possibly make that late playoff push. I mean, my goodness, they're playing very hard, and offensively, they're really not far off from the other big dogs in the NFC. So those are my top 4 coaches so far.
All right. And that brings me now to our man in the beautiful Norista area. That brings us to Steve Atkinson.
So my top 4 coaches, I agree with Steve and Brock. Sean McDermott, leading the Buffalo Bills to first place in the AFC East, has established Josh Allen as an elite quarterback. Second is Andy Reid. He is number 2 because he's established the best quarterback in the game right now, Patrick Mahomes, and he's also taken 2 quarterbacks to the Super Bowl. Number 3, it might shock you, but it's for right now. And I'm going to say Robert Saleh of the Jets, because he just led the Jets to beat Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers at home in their own stadium. They're in second place. They are 4-2 in the AFC East, right behind the Jets. They might fall off the map later in the season, but right now, I put Robert Saleh 3, and then Brian Daboll has to be 4. He's put the Giants on the map with a 5-1 record. All they needed was a good coach who knew what he was doing to win games, not a hardo who came from the Bill Belichick coaching tree and said, "Look at my rings."
Okay. Very well put. And then, please, that sets us perfectly for a very important message. Stay tuned.
The Team Nuts and Bolts Sports Store is officially open. Log on to www.teamnbsmerch.com and get your t-shirts, hoodies, polos, all sizes available. Once again, log on to teamnbsmerch.com. Get yours today.
Baby, you know I don't need. Want you to see everything. Want you to see all of the lights. I tried to tell you, but all I could say.
We now begin the second quarter. So I'm going to begin with the man I just left off with, Steve Atkinson, as we begin our second quarter. So, Steve, I want you to just think for a moment. Football is a sport where people talk about how narrow the line is between defeat and victory. A tip ball, an inch on a 4th and short. Every time you see, literally sometimes a play can be decided by less than an inch. So I want you to think about 4 teams, though, that it would be in their interest to not win this season. Obviously, that's an anathema to every coach, every player, every trainer, every parking lot attendant. Everybody wants to win every game. But should you try to win every game? And so I want you to think about if there's a team that you can think of where it would make sense, where it'd be in their best interest to not win, and pick 4 teams in total that may want to think about not winning every game they can win this season, maybe win fewer games because for the long run.
So the 4 teams, so I'm going to start with obviously the Las Vegas Raiders, who you spend all that money and you bring in Josh McDaniels. Again, I've talked about nauseum of the Belichick coaching tree. But again, you spend all that money and you suck so bad. And Josh has already lost the locker room. Like, he's already lost guys. It's like, you know what? Just lose. The second team is the Denver Broncos. I think they are done. I think Russell Wilson is washed up. He's obviously not into it. No wonder Seattle traded him. I think they traded him. But yeah, I think my third team is the Bears. Oh my God. Again, terrible team. Justin Fields doesn't want to be there. Just absolutely terrible team. The fourth team, I'll have to say Miami. I think you got a little quarterback issue going on, especially with the Tua situation. So yeah, those are my four teams.
I was right there with you, and then you hit me there. That was a surprise. Miami was what I didn't see coming. I will admit that you zagged when I thought you'd zig. Okay, so I'm going to go to the Babyface Assassin. Plus, I mean, he loves the negative. So let's go dark. Who should go ahead and just start tanking it up? Babyface.
Well, Miami's not on my list, but if you look at a guy like Hendon Hooker and his big arm and the weapons he got down there, Miami may not be a bad choice. But for my four, I definitely got to start with Houston and Las Vegas. They're really bad right now, and they need a lot of pieces to compete. And some of the best things that can happen is to get a high draft pick and not need a quarterback, because teams trade up and they trade a lot for those 1, 2, 3 picks, right? So you got Derek Carr on one end, you got Davis Mills, who looks like a legit NFL starter, if not a potential above average, even potential star at the quarterback position. And you can have guys trade up and you can acquire a bunch of picks and then make moves with them later. So those two teams definitely they should lose out if we're discussing that. But I also want to add, I don't think any team should lose out. Should always try and compete. Denver is another team. I mean, let's put aside Hackett and Wilson for a second and just look at that team. That defense is built to compete right now, but that offensive line is not built to even compete in college. I mean, it is bad. We don't talk about it enough. Garrett Bowles going out for the season is one thing, but that offensive line is bad. They don't have a guard on either end, a center, or a proper right tackle. Can we really say that could we plug any other starting offensive lineman in a contender and say that player makes that team better? No, you don't. That player probably makes that team worse. They really need a lot of pieces on that offensive line. And going back to Seattle, they just got their left and right tackle for the future in one draft. That's something that Denver really needs to address coming up. And even though they did trade away the first round pick for Russ, so Seattle would have it, they do need those high second and third rounders. So I think it would be in Denver's best decision to lose out. And the last team, which I know Steve Atkinson is going to cuss me out after the show for, is the New England Patriots. Right now, there's a lot of missing pieces on that team when you look at the offensive standpoint. They're about to have a fire sale when it comes to their wide receivers. Ramondre Stevenson is really the only bright spot in that offensive attack. I mean, you can say the running back room, but they need a lot of different pieces. But you do have some young foundational pieces, guys like Cole Strange, who we all were like, whoa, why'd you take that guy early? And then we look at his production on the field, like, okay, now that makes sense. You have a really good quarterback in Mac Jones because that. And Mac Jones doesn't come back. Isn't Bailey Zappi like 2-0? I'm not saying it's quarterback controversy time. What I am saying is that guys can get the job done. You just need outside weapons to do so. Hunter Henry hasn't played up to par. Jonnu Smith hasn't played well at all since getting that contract. And I think getting some young guys in for New England is just what is needed to get them back to championship level play.
All right. And we've got one Steve left. So let's finish off our allocation of Steves. Who, in your opinion, Steve, should go ahead and just, take it a little bit easier?
All right, my four teams should just go ahead and flush the toilet on this year. I'm going to start with number 4, the Washington Commanders. They should go ahead and plan for the draft and see if Ron Rivera can actually draft his quarterback and mold the team around his guy. Number 3, the Texans have done nothing yet, so why try now? Number 2, the Raiders. Yeah, this is not the year to bet on black. It's time to fold them. They are a bust. And my number 1 team that should go ahead and pack it in. Oh, yes, that is right. The Green Bay Packers should just wrap it up. They're done this year.
Oh, you were doing so well. And then, oh, well.
They let the hate come out.
You can't expect to get. It was almost a clean run. You almost won that segment, Steve. But then you couldn't hold all that hate and vitriol in. But it happens. I get it. Let's keep it.
Consecutive losses to New York teams.
I get that. But those teams that we just talked about are 5-1 and 4-2. So maybe
clearly better than Green Bay.
Now that might be correct.
They're better than Minnesota too.
Well, they play them here at home, so we'll see.
We shall see.
Okay.
We'll be undefeated at home all year.
Shall see. When that nighttime comes up and Kirk Cousins can't see, it's gonna be a good time if you're not a Minnesota fan.
Yes. Okay. This is a great segue as you guys get a little feisty into our next segment. So we get to play the old underrated, overrated game. And I want you to think about for this, you only need one in the first segment. Then the second part of it will go to 4. So a coach in your mind in the NFL, who is the most underrated, and then a coach in your mind, and I'll stick with you, Steve, who you think is the most overrated in the NFL right now. Give me a coach.
Yeah, you got my notes screwed up here. Come back to me.
I'll come back to you. Yes. I know you're always locked and ready to talk about coaches being underrated or overrated, so I will go to Brock Vieira, who just, once again, another segment that's really just some catnip for you. So go ahead, and you can launch.
Got you. So I love that cup that Steve Rogers has behind the Vikings cup. That's great. What happened with his notes is he was trying to. We didn't know if Mello was coming on. He was trying to protect it because Mello keeps on taking all his info. That's what's going on. No, but for real though, when it comes to the overrated coach, not overrated, underrated coach, I gotta go Matt Eberflus in Chicago. I mean, Chicago is, you can make an argument. They're 6 plays away from being 4-1, 5-1, or whatever they played. 6 games so far? 5 games so far? 6 games so far. So yeah, you can make an argument that they're a couple plays away from being 4-2, 5-1. They don't really have a bad loss, and their worst loss is to Green Bay, a game they're pretty competitive in for a very long time. That's a lot when you consider that the Bears are having a fire sale right now. They trade Khalil Mack in the offseason. They're ready to get rid of Robert Quinn for pennies on the dollar. Roquan Smith has really popped up in trade talks. Everyone's been saying that Justin Fields is a true starting quarterback. Nothing is going right outside of the building for Chicago, yet inside he's kept it together, and he's run a really, really tight ship. They should have beat Minnesota for sure. They had a very impressive win in the rain against the Niners, and the Commanders game was just a toss-up. It was just bad football play all around. And if you look at the opportunities, it was more of the Bears losing that game and the Commanders winning it. So Matt Eberflus is my underrated coach so far. He is the right man for the job, and I expect the Bears to take a massive jump next season when they're able to get those draft picks and also that $100 million in cap space for free agency. For my overrated coaches, he's not an overrated coach, but right now he is overrated for what we expected him, and that's Sean McVay. Their offense looks absolutely horrible. If Cooper Kupp goes down for the season, this is a team that's probably not going to average more than 11 points a game. They finally got the ball to Allen Robinson, once or twice last game. It was just on a wide receiver fade. They're really not getting him in the game plan. Yes, Van Jefferson is coming back, but we just got to wait and see on that. Ben Skoranek is wide receiver number 2 right now. They just lost their left tackle for the year, who wasn't even playing that well anyway. Cam Akers looks to be out the door there, so they really don't have a true running back 1 besides Henderson. And Henderson is not an NFL level running back 1. I think we all agree on that. Stafford is still dealing with his injuries. Offensively, they're just not producing. And defensively, they don't look as strong as they did last year. Now, losing Von Miller was a big, big result of that. But you got to set that question. When Brandon Staley left and when Raheem Morris came in, you got to admit that pass rush did take a decrease. Von Miller helped cover that up when he came in. Now that he's gone, they paid Leonard Floyd to be that big outside linebacker. He's not producing. But so that Aaron Donald, can we truly name another pass rusher that is on a above average to elite level on the Rams? We really can't. They have a lot of holes in that defense anyway. Outside of that, Bobby Wagner showing his age. They really don't have a great second linebacker as well. I mean, you can I forget his name, but you can say good things about that linebacking core, but they're not playing at a great level right now, and that's why he's one of my overrated coaches. Frank Reich, I know he did just pick up the win against Jacksonville. Wasn't that impressive. I've been saying for a long time that it's time to move on from Frank Reich. the experiment between him and Chris Ballard, it's over. It's time to pack it up and really get ready for the future. It's just not working out in Indianapolis. Nathaniel Hackett, he's gotta go. I'm sorry. That was coaching malpractice what happened on Monday night. I'm a Chargers fan, clearly. There's no reason the Chargers should have won that game. They were down the starting left tackle, the starting center, and the starting wide receiver in that game. And the defense showed up to play. And you know what the offense did? Pooped the bucket. Like, they were up 10-0 to start, and then how many points did they score after that? 6. I think, and the only reason they were even able to score those 6 was because J.C. Jackson forgot he was playing zone and went to his man tendencies. So they got beat deep, and then they weren't able to capitalize that, so they had to kick the field goal. And Justin Herbert got intercepted on his own end of the 50. So they were already in field goal range of Brandon McManus. Besides that, they had 0 offensive production. Their special teams absolutely cost them the game. And you say Melvin Gordon isn't good enough to get carries with guys like Latavius Murray, but he was good enough to get carries with Javonte Williams. It doesn't make any sense. He has no clear understanding of his personnel. And after researching him, people have been saying that, Nathaniel Hackett was hired so Denver could go out and get Aaron Rodgers. I think there's a lot of credibility to that claim because Aaron Rodgers talks about Nathaniel Hackett very highly, and they were trying to go get him. Now he has Russell Wilson. It's not working out. It's an absolute mess right now. And I am just absolutely dumbfounded at how he's so poor as both an offensive mind and a head coach. To be a head coach and be poor. How are you a great offense coordinator? You get even more control and you're worse. It doesn't make any sense, and he is definitely an overrated coach. I know you said 4. I had 3 written down. So the 4th overrated coach, I have to go with Kyle Shanahan.
Oh.
Again.
Ready? Here we go. Kyle Shanahan had a quarterback that took him to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game, and then drafted another one. Not only did they draft another one, they traded 3 first-round picks for him. And then he gets hurt. Okay, it happens. But you could have used those 3 first-round picks to supplement that offense and that defense that have shown that they are Super Bowl worthy. You already had Jimmy G on that contract. You already had the cap set aside for these other picks. You already set it up so Debo could get paid, Nick Bosa could get paid when Jimmy's contract runs out. Instead, you jumped the gun because you were afraid. You got a quarterback that's not up to par. You traded your future for him, and you're still stuck with the same guy. And then when it comes up to those big moments, your offense falls apart. There's no reason they should have lost to Denver. There's no reason they should have lost to Atlanta, and there's no reason they should have lost to Chicago. The fact that Kyle Shanahan is in the league at this point is proof that he can coach. But the fact that the 49ers have been able to have sustained success during his, 5-6 seasons there is proof that maybe the job is just a little bit too big for him. When he loses DeMeco Ryans next year when he becomes a head coach, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to be able to hire another dude. And I don't think he has it. His offense is taking a step back after Mike McDaniel left. And right now, you really got to ask yourself, are you confident in Kyle Shanahan to be able to right the ship and make the Niners a championship-level team? I still have the faith in him, but right now, he is very overrated.
So each one of you had at least one surprise name. Let's see if Steve Atkinson also surprises me. So I need at least one overrated, at least one underrated for coaches.
All right, so the underrated, I'm going to go with Andy Reid. And the reason why I say that is because everyone talks about Bill Belichick, greatest coach ever, 6 Super Bowl champion with Tom Brady, right? Andy Reid took 2 quarterbacks to the Super Bowl. And, with McNabb and Mahomes. And he's developed 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in McNabb and Mahomes in his career. So I believe that he's very underrated in the NFL. And because, again, everyone talks about Bill and, what he's done with Tom. But no one looks at, Andy Reid and what he's done with two quarterbacks and 2 different teams in 2 different decades. I mean, that was like in the early 2000s, and now coming back into the 2010s to now, it's like, he's developed Patrick Mahomes and won a Super Bowl with them, and he's at least number 2 of all time, and he's very underrated. My overrated coaches, I will say the first one I'm going to say is Matt LaFleur for the Green Bay Packers because he has a checked out Aaron Rodgers, man. You just let the New York Jets beat you at home. Aaron Rodgers looks like 2019 Tom Brady when he didn't want to be in New England. He is so checked out. you got your quarterback checked out, and he's just lost the team. Just like Josh McDaniels, another overrated head coach. He'll never get a head coaching job again. He'll probably get fired after this year and go back to the Patriots. I bet Mac Jones would appreciate that. My third one is Dan Campbell of the Lions, man. Oh, my God, that guy. He is – I remember in his opening press conference when he's like, we're going to break kneecaps, and he was talking all this talk. That guy, man, he comes off as a hardo too, man. I don't know why these guys, they get these jobs and they think they're all this, they're all that, and they just suck. Was that 3? Was that 1?
That's fine. Whatever number you come up with is fine. You don't have to hit a certain number.
That was it.
Yeah, that's fine. That is fine. Well done. And before we close out this segment,
I'm ready for you.
Oh, good. Before we close out this segment, I'm going to ask you to think about.
Don't I get to give you my coaches?
You do. You do. I know you've got a few ready. So why don't you go ahead? That's right, because before you're struggling, now you're ready. Go ahead.
All right. I'm going to unleash my missiles on the coaching system this week. I'm going to start right off with the Monday night game. As bad as Hackett has been, I don't know exactly what happened in the last 40 seconds in the mind of the head coach for Brock's team and the Chargers, Staley. I don't know what he was thinking with 38 seconds and a timeout to go. Let's break it down with 3rd and inches. There should have been a quarterback sneak that moves the chains, requires the clock to stop long enough for you to either at least set up an outside slant to again stop the clock or just clock the ball on 2nd down, and you're still within striking distance of another 1st down. And the field goal range in regulation with your timeout. Time to take a deep shot with 20 seconds or so. You still have all kinds of options. Instead, we get a screen that gets blown up. You lose yards. And then you let the clock run down to 1 second to take a shot to the 10-yard line. What's that going to do for you? There's my first coach that needs a new job.
Okay.
And staying in the AFC West, Denver. Hackett is, again, clearly not hacking it. And we'll just stay there in the AFC West again. Josh McDaniels is doing nothing in Las Vegas his 2nd time around. He's 0 for 2. Let's face facts. The Bill Belichick tree isn't that good.
Okay.
I'm not quite done yet.
All
I
right.
agree with the other Steve. The Green Bay Packers Matt LaFleur party has come to an end. They need to get ready and ship him on out of town too. Thank you for joining on my Packers hatred with me. Come on to town.
Do you also have an underrated coach, or is it just all hate?
I do have some underrated coaches.
Let's pick one.
I'm actually going to put Mike Tomlin, my favorite coach in the NFL, in the underrated coaches. Yes, they're having a tough season, but he has never in 15 years, the longest streak in NFL history, had a losing season. I almost am sure that they will, by the end of the year, be 500.
Well, I would normally agree with you, but unfortunately, there's a 17-game season, so unless they can work out a tie, which maybe they do.
Maybe
Lions last year.
500, I said.
But yeah, it's okay.
And I'm also going with the Sirianni from Philadelphia as an underrated coach. Getting a team 6-0 in the NFL is no joke. So those are my underrated coaches. Oh, and Kevin O'Connell.
Okay, of course. Shocker. And that brings us to this very, very important message. So enjoy. that brings us to the third quarter. And this is, of course, where some of you may have gotten out of the gate slow can maybe make up the ground you lost early on. And some of you that maybe built up a big lead, watch your flanks. Somebody might be gaining on you. So we talked about underachieving or underrated or overrated, underrated coaches. Let's talk about individual players. Players that might be underrated and players that might be overrated. And I will begin with, I guess, the man I just finished off with. I will start once again with our captain, Steve Rogers.
All right. At the top of my list of overrated players, I'm going to go straight to the man who's already checked out in Green Bay and is supposed to be the captain of the team. When your captain of the team is already checked out, you're not going anywhere. Aaron Rodgers, either check back in. I don't know. Probably not. So that's my first shot. I'm always going to have Jimmy Garoppolo right here in my list of overrated players. He was supposed to be the heir apparent to the GOAT. I don't think he's goating anywhere.
All right, I'll allow it. Anybody else?
And number 3, I've got Deshaun Jackson just being signed at 35 to the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to put him on the list of overrated. I don't know what's left in the tank at 35 for the guy. And maybe he can help Lamar Jackson take some pressure off the defense. I'm not sure. We'll see. Number 4 on my list of overrated players, I'm going to go to Dallas and the running back system. Ezekiel Elliott has been underachieving for years now.
Okay. How about underrated? Anybody that you feel is not getting enough love among players?
Well, I mean, of course, at the very top of that list, or so I thought before I started this research, was Kirk Cousins is always being underrated and or over criticized, whichever way you want to flip the coin at it. He's always getting his stick poked at him in some way, form, or shape, or form. He must be the Frankenstein of the NFL. So that's how I like that one. And I'm also going to stay with the purple. Delvin Tomlinson on the D line is underrated and is performing phenomenally, in my opinion, this year.
Okay.
Shout out to New England again. I've also got Bailey Zappi, the future starting quarterback in New England, as an
yes. Agenda pushing. Okay. I like a little agenda pushing. I will go now to, well, what the heck? I mean, natural segue. It's 2 Steves. Zappy just got shouted out. I guess I have to. Steve Atkinson, give me your overrated and underrated players.
Okay, so my overrated players, I'm going to start with Kyler Murray of the Cardinals. I think he is just probably the most overrated quarterback on my list. Jared Goff, he got exposed, especially during the Patriots game. You know, they were supposed to be this high-scoring offense, and then they came into New England and completely got destroyed by that Patriots defense. My third one is Mitchell Trubisky. I don't know why he's still in the league. Mike Tomlin should have started Kenny Pickett from the get-go. I know he has a concussion, but I would rather have anybody play for the Pittsburgh Steelers than Mitchell Trubisky. The fourth one is, I want to say Russell Wilson. Like I said earlier, he is cash. I think he's washed up. That Broncos team is a mess, and he doesn't belong in playing football. Underrated, I'm going to say Stephon Diggs first, because I think he's the reason Josh Allen is mostly an elite quarterback. I mean, you got him an elite receiver like Stephon Diggs, really making plays out there for him, and it looks like now one of the best quarterbacks, I should say, in the AFC. Underrated, second is going to be Trevor Lawrence. I think he's having a second-year jump because of a new coach who knows the offense and knows what he's doing on offense. Like last year when you had a coach that didn't know what he was doing. And I think Trevor is only going to get better. And third is Jalen Hurts. And I think the Eagles are going to go places, and I think they're legit. And those are my underrated players.
Okay. That brings us to, and actually, you've been very mild for you, Brock. This has been, you only fired one coach so far. I think it was Frank Reich was the only one that you came calling for this week. So growth. And now, but who knows what will happen in this next segment. So here we go. Give me your overrated, your what am I trying to say? Yes. Give me yours.
All right, so my overrated, underrated player. I'm gonna start with my underrated. So right now I had Baron Browning from the Denver Broncos. He is electric. When Randy Gregory went down, we expected Bradley Chubb to take up more of the load and see what they can do on the other side of the field, and they basically found it in Browning. Though he has 1.5 sacks so far, but that's because of his lack of usage. Because Gregory is the starter, since coming on, he's been an absolute monster on the field. I expect that to continue for as long as Gregory is out, and maybe they won't have to pay Bradley Chubb because they might have found a true guy in Browning. Another guy on the Denver Broncos is Greg Dulcich. Now, this is a guy that only played one game so far, but it was very impressive that game and has a touchdown. Yes, it was broken coverage, but he's shown that he's very versatile, very athletic, and a very dangerous threat in the pass game. I may have added this to the list because when I was the GM of Tampa Bay Buccaneers and I drafted him, everyone sighed at me and said that was a stupid pick. Well, who's looking stupid now? But that's beside the point. He is looking really good. I expect to have a very good second half of the season as he gets his NFL career started. Robbie Anderson, I think, is going to have a really, really good time in Arizona just because of the way their offense is built and just the sheer amount of targets he's going to get based off that offense. They pass the ball. Has been top 5 in the league with that air raid system. He's a guy that is above average wide receiver. The attention will be on DeAndre Hopkins. If Hollywood Brown comes back, Hollywood Brown can be the stretcher, and Robbie Anderson can be the underneath guy that kills people at horizontal speed. I think he's going to have a really, really good second half of the season, and I expect him to have a really nice time in Arizona. Another former Arizona Cardinal is Christian Kirk. He had that big contract in the offseason. We all were criticizing it. But let's look at the numbers. 25 receptions so far for 362 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's averaging 14.5 yards per reception. That's the first down every time he touches the ball. That's something that you shouldn't laugh at that lately. I think he's having a really, really good year in Jacksonville, and that's why he rounds off my underrated guys. My overrated guys, Kirk Cousins. Holy moly! Why are we on the Kirk Cousins train? Just because Kevin O'Connell is there, it doesn't change anything. Kirk Cousins' issue isn't offense. Kirk Cousins' issue isn't putting the ball in the right place. Kirk Cousins' issue has nothing to do with play or mechanics. The man cannot see at night. And what happens when time goes on? The sun goes down quicker. So that means he's going to play more games with the lights on and the sunlight off, which means he's going to suck more. Like, I'm sorry, Steve. You are my brother. I have such a fun time doing the show with you. But can you truly say Kirk Cousins is that much better of a quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo? Jimmy Garoppolo can win the playoffs. Can Kirk? I don't think so. Like, Kirk Cousins, as soon as you hit week 10, it's downhill. And I don't think having a new offensive coordinator is going to fix that. And Kevin O'Connell as his head coach, because his issues have nothing to do with scheme or putting the ball in active position or anything like that. The man cannot see. He can't see. Like he's gonna go. He can't see. I'm done. He cannot see. Like that's like he thought Darius Slay, like the one nighttime game he had was Monday night. Monday Night Football. Darius Slay was he was hitting him in stride. In legit stride, he was hitting him. Like there's a guy called Trap House Sports, and he has his phrase dot to the op. That's Kirk Cousins. He's throwing dot to the op. And yeah. 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 66% completion pass percentage. It's gonna drop to 58, and he's gonna have double-digit interceptions. Because all he does is hit Justin Jefferson in stride, and then hit the DB in stride the next play. Like dots to the op. He cannot see. Thank you.
All right. Shout out to John Cena. So that was that took a bit of a turn.
Cannot see.
Yeah. So another important
Darius Slay was like, "You cannot see me because the lights are on."
Enjoy this very, 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 very important message.
Nuts and Bolts Sports Draft Central will be live from the Reese's Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Our scouts Jeff Barnes and Bill Carroll will be on hand to break down the performances of the participants in this year's Reese's Senior Bowl. So make sure you tune in for all the coverage. As also, make sure you tune in to NFL Network on Saturday, February 5th 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central.
We now come to the final segment. This is what will decide, of course, who will rise above and who will simply be able to watch hopelessly and helplessly as our champion strides like a colossus above them. So it is time, gentlemen, to call your shots. I will start with you, Steve Atkinson. Give us all, and I will give props to Steve Rogers. So an extra little bonus point, which will help you out that hole you dug earlier, Steve. You have been very, very accurate in the calling your shot segment. I may have to rename it the Steve Rogers calls his shots accurate segment. But let's see if maybe Steve Atkinson can catch some of that wave. Give me your shot, sir.
So the team I pick, the game I pick, I should say, is the Patriots over the Bears. I don't care who's the quarterback on Monday night, the Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones. They should steamroll Chicago. It's the Detroit Lions. It's the Cleveland Browns in a different location. They're the same team. They're just playing in a different location. And I need to ask also if Steve, Brock, or Bill, if you guys have this Zappy fever that has taken over New England, because that's what they call it around here, is Zappy fever. But because I'm kind of a little sick of it, a little bit. But, yeah, I think the Patriots over the Bears. I think it's going to be a blowout. It's going to be like the last week. It doesn't matter who's playing, Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones. I think it's going to be the game will be over by halftime.
Well, you'll be glad to know I'm fully inoculated. I just had a booster. So, no, I have not come down with Zappy fever. So I had like a slight cough for a little while, but I walked it off and I'm fine. I will put a little baby assassin between two slices of Steve. So, stuck in the Steve sandwich, I'm going to go to the babyface assassin himself, Mr. Brock Vieira. Call your shot, young man.
So, Steve, I have not fallen victim to Zappy fever, but I think Zappy hour is hilarious. But my shot, I would go with Thursday night game. I think the Cardinals are going to beat the Saints. I think they're going to beat them fairly easily. Saints have a lot of injuries right now. Dennis Allen is another guy who needs to be fired. It's complete malpractice was going on in New Orleans with the roster that they have. And I think with the addition of Robbie Anderson, DeAndre Hopkins coming back, DeAndre Hopkins being fresh, I think they're going to have a really good impact. And when you look at what the Saints do well on offense, J.J. Watt is going to smoke and Dalton in the backfield, in my opinion. I think Brian Murphy Jr. is going to have an interception. And I also think that no matter what defense they run, they're going to need to blitz Kyler Murray in order to get a sack. I think he's way too elusive for the defense that they have now. And I think that when he's able to turn the corner like he normally does, having D-Hop who understands that and how a quarterback does that and able to kind of run back into those open spaces is going to be a great benefit for them. And that's why I have the Cardinals winning that game.
Okay. And we will finish up with the other slice of Steve on the other side of that babyface assassin. Mr. Steve Rogers, call your shot, sir.
All right. Yeah, I don't know if I would say that I've caught the Zappy fever, but I do believe he is the best option currently going for you guys at the moment. So I would ride that hot hand. Moving on to calling my shot. Yes, I'm going to take a chance to recognize. Thank you, Packers, for helping me get a 2-0 record over the last 2 weeks for falling victim to teams in New York that you should have beaten, especially one of them at home. Yeah, to that point, maybe they are just better teams than you. I am going to actually, as much as I want to jump on the Commanders train and ride my hot streak of my hot garbage team, but I'm gonna let them chill this week, and I'm actually going to call my shot with the where'd they go? Oh, yes. I'm going to take my shot with the Pittsburgh Steelers taking down the Dolphins.
Well, so once again, you have a bonus point that you picked up already for being so accurate. Now, you also pandered. So you might have picked up a half point for pandering. So well done, sir. You got off to kind of a shaky start, but you're right there in it. Oh man, this is gonna be a toughie. Ooh. Oh, who am I kidding? You did it, Steve. You dug out of the hole. You came strong down the stretch, and with the bonus point that you got from being so good at calling a shot in the past, and then the half bonus point for pandering, you did it. You did it. He did it. Anything is possible. Take it away, Steve.
All right. Thank you, as always, to all my esteemed colleagues on the panel here. This is the sweet spot of the Minnesota sports scene. The Vikings are in mid-season form, and on top of their division, we are now roughly a week into the wild hockey season, and we're currently into the first game of the year, the Timberwolves season, who are making moves in the offseason and actually got people brought in and have transformed their roster over the last couple of years and actually look like a team that is playing with purpose for the postseason. So all things are looking mighty fine here in the Minnesota sports scene. There's a cold front coming. Catch it before it catches you.
Well said. And while we have you, Steve, tell people what you're up to. Where can they find your work and follow you, sir?
Yes, as always, I continue to write articles for the nutsandboltsports.com, and you can catch me here on my weekly appearance with the Wednesday No Huddle Necessary show. And I'm trying to push out as much content as possible, and I'm still trying to get the Purple Pride podcast more frequently up and running.
Okay. And once again, I will complete the collection of Steve's. Now I'll go to you, Steve Atkinson. Tell people where they can find your work and follow you on social media, sir.
You can follow me at Steve A1127 on Twitter. Cover the Patriots for Nuts and Bolts Sports, and also the Celtics, who just opened their season yesterday. And you can find me on here every Wednesday on No Huddle Necessary.
Okay. No Boston Red Sox coverage? No Boston. Okay.
No.
Not a hockey guy either. Okay. And take us home, at least home in the talking about who you are, what you do, and how you do it. Brock Vieira, the babyface assassin.
Of course. Well, as y'all know, I run that website, Midnight Sports Today. We have brand new articles. What about the Hawaii Warriors? What about Tennessee's historic victory over Alabama? Check me on Twitter, MNS Today. You know me, I'm always talking sports. Of course, you can catch me here in No Huddle Necessary. You can catch me and Mr. Bill Carroll every Friday, well, Saturday morning. We film on Friday, but you can catch us every Saturday morning for the college football forecast. We're always breaking down the latest news and our predictions of college football and looking at some of the top prospects entering this year's 2023 NFL Draft.
And to make up for the fact that we did not have a guest last week, we have lined up not one, but two guests for our next show. So Malik O.B., who's going to talk some HBCU football with us, and the return of Josh Wheatley, who kicked us off at the beginning of the season. And, I mean, by popular demand, he's returning. So
the Villasparo legend, blue
yes.
collar, right, gritty, right, intelligent.
He is. Yes, former Valparaiso running back, and of course our Ohio State insider Josh Keatley returns. So those two gentlemen will truly make it a memorable show. It'll show up very early, 7 a.m. If you are on the East Coast, 6 if you are on the Central Time Zone, 5 if you are an early riser in the Mountain Time Zone, and of course 4 in the morning if you are someone who stays up very, very late in the Pacific Time Zone. So everyone, thank you so much for your time, your talent, and your attention. We are OUT out.